Acha, next. What are the correct definitions of digestion and assimilation? The intake of food into the body through the mouth, this is swallowing. The breakdown of large insoluble food molecules into small soluble food molecules, this is digestion. The uptake and use of food molecules in the cells of the body, this is assimilation. The movement of food molecules through the walls of intestines into the blood and the lymph, this is absorption. This is not assimilation. So digestion is 2 and assimilation is 3. So the correct answer is going to be B. Which organs produce acid that kills the bacteria in the ingested food? So the organ that produces the acid, HCl, is produced by the parietal cells that are present in the stomach. So the answer is going to be D. The table shows the rate of absorption of two different sugars, arabinose and glucose, in living and dead intestines. The concentration of sugars inside the intestines were the same in each case. What are the main methods of absorption of arabinose and glucose in the living intestine? Okay, now they're talking about living and dead intestine. Why? Because they're going to talk about the use of ATP, that is the use of energy, because energy and ATP can only be produced by living cells. So arabinose was same. The rate of absorption of arabinose in living intestine and dead intestine was the same. However, for glucose in living intestine, more glucose was absorbed. In dead intestine, less glucose was absorbed relatively. This means that arabinose is absorbed via diffusion, whereas glucose is absorbed via active transport because it requires ATP. It requires energy because in living cells, energy is present and more is absorbed, and in dead cells, energy is not present and less is absorbed. So, arabinose is via diffusion, whereas glucose is via active transport. So, the correct answer is going to be C. Next, which table shows muscle movement during inspiration? So, during inspiration, from our bookish knowledge, we know that two muscles are at work, or two muscles are contracting. First is the diaphragm, and the second is the external intercostal muscles. So, the diaphragm contract and the external intercostal muscles contract, whereas the internal do not contract. So, the correct answer is going to be B. Next, which apparatus can be used to investigate the production of carbon dioxide by anaerobic respiration of yeast cells? So, if we look at all of the apparatuses, we have same yeast and sugar solutions in all of the four. However, what has changed? First is the presence of a layer of oil in two of these. In the other two, there is no oil. The point of oil over here is so that the yeast that is present within the solution, it cannot absorb the oxygen that is present above. So this oil layer over here is going to prevent the oxygen from going into the yeast. So it has deprived the yeast of oxygen that forces the yeast to respire anaerobically. So C and D is going to be cut out because oxygen is present, no oil is present. So the yeast that is present here is going to respire aerobically. It is going to consume oxygen. So C and D are a no. Out of A and B, over here the water bath is at 100 and the water bath here is at 40. Now yeast cells, they die at the temperature that is higher. So at 100 the yeast cells are going to die. There's not going to be any respiration by them. So 40 is the optimum temperature for them. So the answer is going to be A. The diagram represents the equations for aerobic respiration. Aerobic means that it is utilizing oxygen. So, which words correctly complete the gaps 1 to 4? Carbon dioxide, no. Glucose and glucose, yes. Oxygen, yes. In 2, carbon dioxide, no. Water, no. Oxygen, yes. Water, no. What are going to be the products? Oxygen, no. Oxygen is not going to be the product. Carbon dioxide is going to be the product. Glucose is not going to be the product. And carbon dioxide is going to be the product. And then fourth, the product is going to be water and water, not the oxygen and not the glucose. Glucose and oxygen are the reactants. So the correct answer is going to be C. The graph shows a person's pulse rate over a period of time during which they rest and pedal an exercise bike and then rest again. At which point does the person stop pedaling? So, if the person starts pedaling, initially the heart rate is going to go up, and then there would be a plateau because the oxygen consumption and the need for energy is going to be equal. So, this is the point where it is equal. At B, the person is going to stop pedaling. Why? Because the heart rate is now decreasing. So the point at which the person stops pedaling is B. Which row shows the name of the blood vessels that transport blood to and from the liver and the kidney. Now, to the kidney is always going to be an artery, and from the kidney is always going to be a vein. So, and it is going to be renal. So, renal artery, renal vein. Now, when we talk about the liver, so I'm going to show you with the help of a picture here. Now, this inferior, why can't I? So this inferior mesenteric and superior mesenteric veins, this comes from the GIT. These veins come, the splenic vein come in, and they form the portal vein that goes into the liver. This is the liver that is being drawn over here. So the portal vein goes to the liver. So the hepatic portal vein goes to the liver, and from the liver, if I change the color, and from the liver, all of these veins collect and they form the hepatic vein. So from the liver, the hepatic vein originates. So the correct answer is going to be C. Next, what is a pathogen? Now, pathogen is not a disease, and pathogen is not the cure for a disease. Now, either the pathogen is a disease causing organism or the pathogen is a disease carrying organism. Now, is it a causing organism or a carrying organism? The carrying organism is a vector. This is something that you need to know. And the thing that causes, or the organism that causes the disease, is called a pathogen. So the correct answer is going to be A. But here you need to know that the organism that carries the pathogen is called the vector. Next, malaria can be controlled by the use of mosquito nets treated with insecticide placed over the beds. The use of the bed nets reduce the number of insect bites by infected mosquito. The graph shows the impact of the use of bed nets on the average number of mosquito bites in a group of people. Now now this one is used before the nets, and this is after the use of bed nets. What conclusion can be drawn? Now, if you look over here, the most number of bites per hour was the most over here. This is midnight, and this is after midnight during the AM time. Mosquito bite more during the evening than after the midnight? No, this is wrong. Mosquito bites are more after the midnight. Use of bed nets prevented mosquito bites? Yes, it does prevent mosquito bites. Use of bed nets had a greater impact after midnight than before midnight. Now, since before midnight, less number of mosquito were biting, and after midnight, more number of mosquito were biting. So, yes, after midnight, the bed nets had a greater impact. So, the answer is correct. The maximum number of mosquito bites occur between 1 to 2 a.m. No, not between 1 to 2 a.m., but between 11 p.m. to 12 a.m. and after midnight. So, the correct answer is going to be C.